The Economic Freedom Fighters will celebrate its 12th anniversary with a rally in Khayelitsha in the Western Cape today. Party leader Julius Malema has been at the helm since its founding, being re-elected unopposed at conferences. Now, in recent years, the party experienced a mass exodus of prominent members, notably Floyd Shivambu and Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. And this, however, did not deter them from doing their work set out in their vision and mission. The EFF has been praised for its robust presence in parliament, opposing the ruling party and fighting against what they call anti-poor policies. Let's take a look now at the past 12 years of the EFF with political commentator and Central University of Technology lecturer Leeto Nthoba. Good morning, Leeto. Always good to have you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, looking at the EFF's 12-year trajectory, would you characterize this as a party that's fulfilled its revolutionary potential or one that's failed?
I think it's a party that is interestingly fulfilling a role that we never knew we needed in South African politics. It's one of the parties that we never thought we needed, but we can't imagine ourselves without today. So I think on that metric, they have succeeded in capturing the minds of South Africans, no matter what you think of them. And so I cannot call it a failure if a party manages to capture the minds of people in the way in which the EFF has, but also embedded itself in the South African psyche and politics the way that it has today. So you can't go without mentioning them in the South African political party system, even though they're 12 years old. And that is, for me, the biggest win that they have in their bag.
Now, speaking of which, there's a pattern where people turn to the EFF when they want to protest against government failures, but come election time, they vote for the same parties. Now, do you think South Africans trust the EFF with the responsibility of governance?
And that's I think the EFF is the party of the robust opposition, right? Without the MK's inclusion, everybody has expected the EFF to be the official opposition in parliament today. So in thinking of them like that, the people do trust the EFF to deal with their gripes. I don't think they trust the maverick nature of the EFF. And so at times, I think the people don't like the tantrums that they see from the EFF, especially during parliamentary sessions where they used to fight and all of those things. I think them breaking decorum in that way did not reward them in any specific way, because I think people like a stable party, one that keeps decorum, but a party of action. They have shown themselves to be a party of action, a party that's close to the people and their needs. And I think now is the time for their revolution to take on a more mature and stable figure going forward. And in doing that, I think they're going to start to regain their votes, but also gain the votes of people who are disillusioned totally with the government today.
So on the issue of stability, and given that the EFF lost ground while parties like the MK party gained traction, has the EFF failed to evolve with changing voter expectations?
No, I think celebrations like today, for instance, I think are both cure and cause for the EFF. The EFF has these huge rallies, right? Where you see 1 million plus people in attendance or should be in attendance, and then they'll count for you what their membership is. I think it's they have the problem emanates from the same thing. Once EFF members who are very young, by the way, and inexperienced in voter trends and in also consistency in voting, see themselves as this huge crowd, most of them would then feel apathetic and say, oh no, but there are many of us. Me and my 5 friends are EFF members. So if I don't go vote today, they'll vote on my behalf, right? And then in doing that, only 2 of the 5 people who are supposed to vote for the EFF actually go out to the polls and vote. And so they now must try to re-energize the crowds that they pull to go and vote in the very same numbers. And in doing that, they will just encompass a much bigger footprint in the South African politics. They've done so well in targeting the young people of South Africa, but I don't think they've done well enough in impressing into the young people, consistency in voting trends, consistency in voting in the EFF in order for them to start seeing results.
Now, there's a lot of re-energizing that certainly needs to happen. We've seen key figures like Floyd Shivambu leaving the party. Are these departures symptomatic of a party in crisis, or is this just a natural political evolution?
I think we did an interview after Floyd leaving, and I said it was a flashpoint, right? If more people had left with Floyd Shivambu, we'd be talking about a much more different party, and we would have been talking about a crisis point. But it just seems like a fork in the road and not a crisis point. I mean, we all will remember the day Floyd Shivambu left the EFF in history, but none of us will say this is the moment that broke the EFF, because it doesn't seem like the EFF is breaking. Instead, they strengthened up and coalesced around their leader, Julius Malema. And now the next key is, can they grow under him? Or is there somebody who seems to be a leader under him? Because those are the key questions. Can Julius Malema relinquish the seat if he doesn't help the EFF grow? Because their one metric for success has always been their growth projections and how they are influencing the country. Can they do that outside this big cult leader that they have, and without the Floyd Shivambu, who was said to be their documents whisperer? So that, I think, is going to be the next dynamic of the EFF. Can they grow beyond the cult?
All right. Now, looking ahead to upcoming elections, do you believe there's a calculated political strategy behind the EFF's decision to host their 12th anniversary celebration in Cape Town, which, as we know, is a city where they have historically struggled to gain significant support?
Cape Town is the next battleground, right? Not because it's so coveted, because one, it's very rich in capital, and also it would be a signifier of a lot of strength if this battleground province would be won over by anyone else. For instance, the Free State is just as much as a battleground for them, but the Free State does not have the same amount of capital that it does, and it also doesn't have the same amount of gravitas that the Western Cape carries. And I think the Western Cape is going to be the next target in the next elections. It seems like fertile ground to go and undermine what the DA has been doing, because even though the DA has done a good job of governing the Western Cape, not everybody is happy, including those they say they are governing for. And I think that is going to be fertile ground for attack. So you're going to start to see all of these parties going into the Western Cape in various forms to try to get the DA out of governance and themselves in.
Now, the EFF recently won, award in Julius Malema's home area. Does this victory suggest genuine governing potential, or is it simply hometown loyalty?
I think it does, because remember, it was very hard for him to actually actualize any kind of significant momentum in his home province, for instance. So in seeing that, if those are the trends, it means that people are starting to think about the EFF in very different ways. And that's why I was saying the key is to see whether they've matured ever since we saw the stance with them fighting with parliamentary guards, because now people are actually considering a different alternative, right? Or an alternative for their leadership. The GNU is proof of that. And so in the GNU in and of itself not fulfilling any kind of key goals, people are then saying, who is the next big thing? And if the EFF can project itself as the next big thing by trying to consolidate power amongst the voters and showing themselves as a mature party that can lead South Africa and not necessarily follow the outbursts of Julius Malema as he has them. So a lot of people are looking for security in their vote. And the maverick nature of the EFF speaks to revolution and not security. And I think that's going to be where the key points of messaging would be. How do you turn your revolutionary points into points of security and safety for the people and their votes.
Now, Leeto, let's continue to look at the recent successes of the EFF, most recently with them being able to successfully oppose the VAT increase. And maybe you can tell us about other notable achievements in your eyes of the EFF in the last 12 years.
I think the EFF's most notable achievement so far, like as you said, even though the MK is the official opposition in parliament, nobody actually looks at the MK as the official opposition. The official opposition is the EFF. Even when the MK is trying to put a move forward for a motion of no confidence or anything of the sort, they now have to consult the EFF first. The EFF has placed itself well in the center of the opposition in South African politics. I think the other wins that the EFF has had throughout the years are not limited to just capturing the minds of South Africans. There have been very crude and shrewd operators in the opposition space, and especially how they've also snuck their way into governance in Johannesburg, for instance, in Pretoria. They always find themselves at centers of negotiation, whether we should include them in negotiations. Parties have declared them persona non grata, so the DA won't go where the EFF is, but will sometimes go and negotiate with them in Ekurhuleni because they need them. And so the EFF has now ingrained themselves in the South African politics to the point at which they seem to be any other struggle liberation party. And I think that's going to be important for them going forward, because without that big character that they encompass, it's going to be very difficult moving out of the shadow of the ANC. And I think they also are in a very crucial time, because the ANC seems to be crumbling all around us. And if they could just remain steady, they will be the liberation movement to look for, because every other liberation movement now is dead or dying. And so the EFF is going to be a clear future competitor for South Africa's presidency.
All right. Now, all right. So before I let you go, and very briefly, Leeto, where do you see the party in the next 12 years if the EFF continues on its current trajectory?
There are two significant ways the party can go. If Julius Malema does not abdicate the seat and leave the party to grow naturally, the EFF turns to the UDM and sort of flutters into the periphery of parliament. Even though the leader has a strong countenance, is strong within the politics, the party becomes a nothing burger. If he does leave the seat and allow for natural progression within the party and make sure that the party is stable, that then becomes the more dangerous EFF, an EFF that is evolving in ideas, that is evolving in leadership, that might genuinely counter the South African middle and the South African right in earnest.